How many commands does the Army, Navy and Air Force have, and what is the new proposal being made in merging of these commands?
आपको नहीं लगता कि वर्ल्ड वाइड सिनेमा में इंडिया में जब गरीबी दिखाई जाती है, भुखमरी दिखाई जाती है, तो वो उसको हाईलाइट करते हैं? आपको क्यों ऐसा लगता है कि आज की डेट में हमारी कोई मूवी ऑस्कर में बहुत अच्छा नहीं कर पा रही है, और जबकि ईरानियन मूवीज़ बहुत अच्छे रिसेंटली वो ऑस्कर के लिए नॉमिनेट होता है? हमारे में क्या ऐसी कमी है कि हम ऑस्कर के लिए नॉमिनेट नहीं हो पा रहे हैं?
You are aware that there are many reports about Muslim population literacy rate. So why is it so low and it is not improving even after so many efforts? What can be done about it?
जैसे अगर दौड़ रहे हो और चल रहे हो तो पहले एड़ी पड़ेगा पंजा। Please.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you, Aamir?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
So, please let me know about yourself.
Sir, my name is Aamir Khan. I belong from Banda in Uttar Pradesh. I did my mechanical engineering from Aligarh Muslim University. And I'm an avid reader. I'm trying to establish my own library. And sir, I'm an optimistic person. And I'm ambitious and I have aspirations for myself, my family and my society.
So, Aamir as a personality,
Yes, sir.
define yourself.
Sir, I'm a very resilient person and I'm hardworking, dedicated, and when I take a challenge, I do not back away from it. I'm a responsible person. I like to take responsibility, being the eldest child. So I'm used to taking responsibilities and I'm very confident in fulfilling those responsibilities, sir.
Very recently you would have heard that a Chinese ship, surveillance ship, had berthed at Hamintata port of Sri Lanka.
Yes, sir.
What could be the reason of India objecting to that?
Sri Lanka is a neighboring country of India, and as such, India's strategic interests lie in the political development and going about in Sri Lanka. And also, China is trying to create a string of pearl around India, which should make India wary and which India is taking very seriously. And owing to these reasons, India is trying to keep its maritime border safe, and that's why it is a concern for India.
You are right for a normal ship, but in this case it was a surveillance ship for which a lot of objection was made by India.
Yes, sir. Sir, if it was surveillance ship, then it would have been very easy for China to map our maritime border, coastal border, and then that could be used by China to threaten our maritime border. They are already doing it in the northeast and northern border, and they would have opened another front at southern border also. So that is obviously a matter of concern for us.
Basically, the surveillance ship is also a spy ship for the Chinese, because it has got a high-tech tracking system which is linked to Chinese satellites, 9 of them.
Okay, sir.
And it could have, captured all the details of our nuclear projects and other defense establishments which are there in the southern part of the country. So that is the reason why India was objecting to it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Another question about armed forces only.
Yes, sir.
How many commands does the Army, Navy and Air Force have, and what is the new proposal being made in merging of these commands?
I'm sorry, sir. I'm not aware of this exactly. I'll have to study about it.
Your name is very interesting. Aamir Khan,
Yes, sir.
one of the famous actors.
Yes, sir.
Right. Have you seen any one of his movies?
Yes, sir. I've watched quite a few of his movies. Watching movies being one of my hobbies. Yes, sir.
You like him?
Yes, sir. He's a good actor.
He's a great actor.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Plus, I find in your DAF that 10th standard, you had 9.6
Yes, sir.
CGP,
Yes,
isn't
sir.
it? And 12th standard, it came down to 80%.
Yes, sir.
Then I find in BTech, it further came down to 6.7.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Sir, there is, as far as the 12th standard is considered, 80%, I did my 12th standard from Aligarh Muslim University, and as per AMU board, 80% is considered decent score because the topper that year got around 83% marks. So it is a board issue, sir, difference between board. As far as college is concerned, sir, when I went to college for the first time, in the beginning itself, I got scared and overwhelmed. I was away from home and I could not cope up with the pressure initially.
What kind of pressure?
Sir, academic pressure. And also, sir, I could not fit in with the college curriculum immediately. Although later on in my last around 6th, 7th, 8th semester, I did improve considerably. Although the overall CGPA, which reflects in my mark sheet, has been poor because of my initial performance.
But later on, you made up for that.
Yes, I did. I tried my best and I did made up.
Last 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I find your hobbies, like reading classical literature and non-fiction.
Yes, sir.
So, how do you differentiate between fiction and non-fiction?
Sir, in a very simple term, fiction is imagination, which is not necessarily a real event. Non-fiction usually deals with, suppose, a particular subject. It could be science, history, geography, or sociology. So that is the basic difference between fiction and non-fiction. Although sometimes some people say that non-fiction sometimes becomes more bizarre than fiction. So there is always that.
If somebody is writing his autobiography, yes, it would be fiction or non-fiction?
It would be non-fiction.
Non-fiction.
Yes, sir.
Any books on non-fiction which you have read?
Yes, sir. Sir, recently I read a book called An Elegant Defense by a journalist called Matt Rittel. It is about our immune system and how it has evolved in human beings and how our study about it developed in the last 100 to 150 years.
Good. You also read classical literature.
Yes, sir.
Like what kind of literature you read?
Sir, I have read, in Hindi literature, I have read Premchand. I have read Nav Sahitya. In English, I have read Oscar Wilde, Charles Dickens, the Bronte sisters. I have also read a lot of Russian literature, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy being my favorite.
Russian literature?
Yes, sir.
You know Russian?
I don't know Russian, sir. I read
translated versions.
Yes,
okay.
Although, sir, I would love to learn Russian someday.
Which are some of the great, creations of Premchand?
Sir, Godan is his magnum opus, as is known. And then there are Raban, Nirmala.
So what for Premchand is actually known? And how do you distinguish Premchand from other Hindi writers?
Sir, the first thing that strikes about Premchand is his language. His language is very approachable as compared to, say, Jaishankar Prasad, whose language is more academic. Premchand's language is more close to what people speak. The second striking feature about Premchand is the themes which he picks. His books cover almost all the strata and spectrum of the society, be it poor people, be it old people, be it women, lower caste people. He covers all of them, and the psychological analysis that he does of the society, that is also very remarkable in Premchand.
And you have read something on Oscar Wilde also?
Yes, sir.
What you have read particularly? Because he has written a lot of...
Sir, I have read his short novel called The Picture of Dorian Gray, and his short stories, and also read some plays written by him.
Another interesting thing I find in your DAF is this comparing world cinema.
Yes, sir.
What is that? How do you compare world cinema?
Sir, I like to watch movies across the world from different countries by different directors.
Watching world cinema. But
yes, and then I compare them on some parameters, like,
for example,
the theme they represent, for example, Iranian cinema. It is more subtle compared to, say, French cinema, which is more effusive. So these are some basic differences. Also, music they use. Again, for example, in India, our movies are very much incomplete, almost without a song or background music. But some Hollywood movies you will see are almost without music. So this becomes another factor. And the different directors have different ways of approaching a theme or representing. For example, Wes Anderson, if you see, his visual representation of movies is masterclass. On the other hand, Akira Kurosawa, for example, it is not the visual spectrum that he creates which is beautiful, but the story that he narrates. That is very touching, very educating, in fact.
And where do you place Indian cinema in the world kaleidoscope of cinema world?
So, if you are talking about hierarchy, then I don't think that any one cinema can be considered superior or inferior to another cinema. Although I would say, for example, directors like Satyajit Ray, they certainly stand among the topmost echelons of directors in world cinema.
How do you say that?
Because first reason would be that his movies have stood the test of time. Pather Panchali, for example, still remains a classic. And the same can be said about, say, Martin Scorsese, Alfred Hitchcock. So in that case, in that way, Satyajit Ray, I would say, is one of the foremost directors of the world cinema. And Indian movies are popular worldwide. For example, Shammi Kapoor was greatly loved in Russia. Shah Rukh Khan is a global superstar. So I would say that Indian cinema is at par with global cinema.
ये शम्मी कपूर थे या राज कपूर थे?
I'm sorry, sir, I might have made a mistake. Thank you, sir.
Only one last question.
क्वेश्चन आपसे ही मैं निकाल लेता हूँ.
Yeah.
आपने पाथेर पांचाली के बारे में बात की. आपको नहीं लगता कि वर्ल्ड वाइड सिनेमा में इंडिया में जब गरीबी दिखाई जाती है, भुखमरी दिखाई जाती है, तो वो उसको हाईलाइट करते हैं? आपको क्यों ऐसा लगता है कि आज की डेट में हमारी कोई मूवी ऑस्कर में बहुत अच्छा नहीं कर पा रही है, और जबकि ईरानियन मूवीज़ बहुत अच्छे रिसेंटली वो ऑस्कर के लिए नॉमिनेट होता है? हमारे में क्या ऐसी कमी है कि हम ऑस्कर के लिए नॉमिनेट नहीं हो पा रहे हैं?
From my experience of watching Oscar nominated and Oscar winning movies, they look for movies which touch the chord with the audience, which represent the reality of society as it is, and also there has to be an element of poignancy in those movies, pensiveness. And Pather Panchali meets almost all these criteria. Although the movies which are made, they are indeed good, they do meet all these
मेरा
criteria.
क्वेश्चन है कि क्या ये बायस्ड नहीं है अपनी ज्यूरी में, अपने क्राइटेरियाज में, कि जब आप थर्ड वर्ल्ड नेशंस की गरीबी दिखाते हैं, भुखमरी दिखाते हैं, तो वो उसे बहुत लाइक करते हैं, लेकिन जब आप रियलिटी की तरफ जाते हैं तो क्या भारत की रियलिटी केवल गरीबी और भुखमरी है?
Yes, sir, I would agree with you on this point that it could be a case. But
It could be a case. It is certainly a case. Please, your opinion.
Sir, my opinion is that I do not know the internal mechanism of Oscar, but I find it fairly fair. And if our movies are not making it...
So, according to you, Indian cinema is not up to the standard of the Oscar, if you are fair. If you find the juries of the Oscar is totally fair.
Sir, every year thousands of movies are made worldwide, and only the best of the best reach the Oscars. So if Indian movies do not reach the Oscars, it does not mean that Indian movies are inferior. It only means there are in that particular year some better movies which have been made. And although I would still not say that the Oscars is the benchmark or the certificate of goodness of movies.
Good. One last question from my side to you. You are mentioning about reflective writing.
Yes, sir.
What is reflective writing?
Sir, reflective writing could be...
But I'm seeing this term for the first time.
Okay.
Writing is reflective writing.
Sir, reflective writing is also a form of journal entry in which we reflect on particular events. For example, suppose something happened to me that day.
Achha, event-based reflective writing.
Event-based, emotion-based. If I watched a movie, if I met someone, anything that has happened with me, or even that I have observed being happening with someone else.
So it is one of the forms of creative writing.
Yes, it could be considered that.
It is one of the ways to do creative writing.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
What specifically you write? Like, could you tell us?
Sir, I write about the events, or as I told you, anything that has impacted me, how it has impacted me, and if it has impacted me a certain way, why it has impacted me in that way only and not the other way. For example, if I see a poor person on the street and I give him some alms, then why did I give to that person, I did not give to the other person? So these all things will go on in my mind. I will reflect upon them and then I will try to come with a conclusion, which might be right, which might be wrong.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
This brisk walking, tell us 3 great benefits of brisk walking.
So the most obvious benefit would be health benefits. It keeps you active. The second would be it is a great stress buster for me. And the third is, I think it is very personal, that it helps me gather my thoughts. I mean, I read about an American author who used to write in his bathtub. So I kind of gather my thoughts while walking. So these are 3 benefits for me.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
अच्छा, अगर दौड़ रहे हो और चल रहे हो
Yes, sir.
तो पहले एड़ी पड़ेगा या पंजा?
So
दोनों difference किस में
पहले
है?
एड़ी पड़ेगी. नहीं, sorry, in both the differences. When we are running, it would be so while we are walking, it would be the heel. While we are running, it
ओके,
would be
जब
our-
वॉक करोगे तो पहले हील आएगा
Yes, sir.
और रनिंग करोगे तो
I think.
यू थिंक
I'm sorry, sir. I will have
इट्स अ
to.
प्रैक्टिकल थिंग.
I will have to be more observant the next time. I've been taking running for
You
granted. I
did
think.
for the last 5 years.
So I've been running
5 साल
for.
से कर रहे हो.
So I've been running all my life almost, but I think I took it for granted all my life. I never thought that I should even reflect
So
about
how
it.
can you be so serious about your job?
Sir, running is, for example, running or eating.
For taking for granted is your behavior, internal behavior. How
Sir-
can take your responsibility?
Sir, as I already said that I'm a responsible person by nature. And second, a job is something which we get after, for example, if I become IAS officer, I will get after a lot of hard work and investment in it. I will know what I'm doing. As far as running or walking is concerned.
But hobbies are all yours. Nobody
sir.
force you.
No, sir. So for example, running.
Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Sir, as far as running is concerned, we are doing it since I'm at the.
If it is your hobby
Yes, sir.
and you are doing for last 5 years,
Yes, sir.
and you are not observant कि पहले एड़ी पड़ी या पंजा, so
Sir-
हम कैसे मान लें कि आप जो है वो सर्विस में ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी में आप सडनली चेंज हो जाओगे, आयरन मैन हो जाओगे?
Sir, my hobby is brisk walking, and that I've been quite observant about. Running is not something I do regularly or as a hobby. Running is something.
कभी दौड़े हो ना?
necessary. Yeah, I have run, yes, but running away from a dog leaves you little room to think about how you are running.
Please, ma'am.
I mean, you can't run on your heels. You have to be on your toes to run.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And in brisk walking, you generally put the whole foot
Yes, sir.
together.
Thank you, sir.
So Aamir, I'll continue the question from the previous question. Brisk walk.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you call a walk? How do you differentiate between a walk and a brisk walk?
Sir, ma'am. Walking is usually the difference is in the speed of walking. When you walk at normal pace, it is walking.
What is
and-
that? There must be some unit, something which says, anybody, according to me, my walk can be a brisk walk. According to you, it could be a very leisurely walk. My walk could be a leisurely walk. What walk would you call as a brisk walk?
Ma'am, brisk walking is considered brisk walk when the walking rate matches with your heart rate. So if an average person's heartbeat is around 120 to 140 per minute. So matching that heart rate is considered
Is it
brisk
the heart
walking.
rate or is it the speed?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I have to study more about it.
Yeah, if you're writing,
Yes, ma'am.
and quite prominently you've written brisk walking is your hobby, and you're saying that for 5 years you've been brisk walking. So I think it needs a clear definition that what is a brisk walking.
I will study about it.
Again, continuing with your hobby as brisk walking, have you ever considered sports or NCC as to be a extracurricular activity for you?
I'm sorry, ma'am, it never crossed my mind. I've
It never,
never
because in
went to
various schools and in colleges, NCC, sports, they are all offered.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever think that you have to, and particularly if you had IAS as your, because these are the activities, extracurricular activities, which give you a lot of insight into, being a good citizen, qualities of a good citizen. So it never struck you that.
I never participated formally in any event, but I did participate in like sports with my friends. I participated in sprint race when I was in school. Although later on in college, I was largely into academics.
Okay. Aamir, again, a question from movies and your reflective writing and your reading.
Yes, ma'am.
अगर प्रेमचंद की किसी एक कहानी पे आपको मूवी बनानी होती, and since you are watching and comparing world cinema,
Yes, ma'am.
what is a different element you would put कि ये Indian audience को पसंद आए और ये global audience को पसंद आए? What are the points you will keep in mind?
Ma'am, from watching world cinema, I have realized that people across all over the world, they feel the same emotions, although their reaction to those emotions could be different, but they are moved by the same emotions, the same feelings. So if I had to pick one of Premchand's short stories, I would pick Eidgah, because it deals with the sense of responsibility and sense of sacrifice of that little child Hamid. And that I think would resonate with people all across the world.
And what are the elements? You think there should be some different elements for the global audience and Indian audience?
For Indian, for example, Indian audience, as I've already mentioned, is more fond of the musical drama kind of thing, songs and all. So I might try to put a song in there. For example, like Tare Zameen is an excellent movie, and which the song Ma.
But
So
एक ही
something like
मूवी
that.
बन रही है, उसको हम ग्लोबल ऑडियंस को भी दिखा रहे हैं और इंडियन ऑडियंस को भी दिखा रहे हैं.
And I think that would work with people all across the world, because Indian movies are watched all across the world. People of different background do watch Indian cinema, so I think it would resonate with them. Although I will have to think better about it, and I'll try.
Okay, so another question, Aamir. Why do you want to become an IAS?
Ma'am, there are various factors behind this. First, if I take professional reasons, then I think it is a very challenging and it will be a very satisfying job for me. Personally, my father is a government employee, and he would, when growing up, he would always tell me that this DM has been posted to our district and he's such a good officer, he's making such a change, or this officer is not so good, and because of this we are having so many problems. So it struck me that joining the prestigious Indian Administrative Service will put me in a position where I'll be able to make some changes to the society. I will be in a decision-making position. So that fascinated me, and that drove me towards joining the service. And then later, when I went to college, I started reading a lot, and I started interacting with people from different places, and that broadened my perspective, and it consolidated my aim to become an IAS officer.
But the first thing you said, it will be a satisfying experience, okay? जब तक हम किसी चीज़ को एक्सपीरियंस नहीं करते, हमें कैसे पता चलेगा कि वो satisfying होगा? कोई चीज़ मुझे बहुत अच्छी लग सकती है, पर till the time I do not experience it, how do I know कि ये मुझे satisfy करेगा? You've never been in a district beyond Aligarh, beyond Banda. What all other places have you been? If you become an IAS, you will be placed into various districts. कहीं पे भी आपने अपने options दिए हैं zone wise, but you could be posted in anywhere in the country. Okay? So क्या आपको उस जगह का रीजन का खाना पसंद आएगा, लोग पसंद आएंगे, आपकी मानसिकता उनसे मिलती है, नहीं मिलती है, और आपने इतना टफ एग्जाम दे के आप सेलेक्ट हुए हैं. So how would you deal with that situation?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, my first introduction to the civil services is a vicarious experience. I have heard from seniors, from my parents, from people I know who are into the services, and which attracted me to it. Although I do realize that the path in future might be uncertain, but I'm open to experiences. I'm open to learning, and I'm open to see how things go for me. And I'm ready to give my best to giving my best to these services.
Okay.
Thank you.
Over to you, Sushil.
Aamir, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
So Aamir, you said you are optimistic, ambitious, resilient, hardworking, and confident. Can you tell us one situation where you have shown all these traits or some of them?
Sir, as I said at the outset of the interview about my academic performance, the first 2 years at college were very difficult for me. I started, in fact, suffering from mental health issues, and my parents even suggested me to drop out of college and join some other course. But that was the moment I realized that if I drop out, I would be a quitter, and I did not want to be a quitter. I thought that I might have to work a little harder. I might have to go the extra mile, but I was ready to do that, to prove it to myself that I can do it. And that is, I think, one of the most important decision of my life, and one of the most important event that shows the qualities I have just described.
So how you do that? Like you took help from your friends, parents, or self-motivation. So can you just let us go through that process?
Sir, first of all, I started doing a lot of introspection. Why am I scared of all of this? And I started seeing that there are so many students around me who are doing well in this. Why am I am lagging behind? So I tried to pinpoint those loopholes, those flaws in me. I started working on them. Then I started my friend circle. I started hanging out with them more. I was earlier very much of an introvert. So I started hanging out more with them. I started doing group study sessions. So that also opened me to those new experiences and helped me overcome my fear. And
Okay. Aamir, your father is in upper primary school teacher.
Yes, sir.
So suppose like COVID has affected the primary education a lot. So suppose you are a DM in a district and after COVID situation, schools have reopened, but students are not coming back. They are dropped out, or they have started working somewhere, small students. So what will be your approach to bring them back, and how to make up for the loss of studies which they have gone through in the COVID times?
Yes, sir, COVID has indeed disrupted education's academic cycle. My first aim here would be to bring students to school, and midday meal is one of the finest example of this. But despite midday meal, if they are not coming, I will try to organize extracurricular activities. I will organize seminars for their parents, so that because a lot of especially in villages, children start working because their parents make them to. Obviously, they are compelled to do it. I will try to convince them to send their children to school. I will introduce some extracurricular activities, for example, sports, to attract them, to keep them in school, and then I will arrange special training modules for teachers to cover up the lost syllabus while continuing with the syllabus ahead. These are the few steps which I will take.
Okay. Aamir, you are a mechanical engineer also. So recently there are many news where electric vehicles are catching fires. So can you point out the reason for that? Why is it happening?
I'm sorry, sir, I have not yet studied about it.
Okay. So you are from AMU also. Who founded AMU?
Sir Syed Ahmad Khan founded.
Okay. Aamir, one more question. You are aware that there are many reports about Muslim population literacy rate. So why is it so low and it is not improving even after so many efforts? What can be done about it?
Sir, as our former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru pointed out at the outset of our independent India, that Muslims are one generation behind the rest of the Indian population in terms of literacy rate, in terms of family planning, in terms of other social indicators. So this problem has beset Muslim community since the outset, and the recent problem, although the things are improving, the literacy rate is increasing among Muslims also. I see a lot of women acquiring higher education. Although the factors behind higher literacy would be historical factors, obviously, first of all. Then there is a sense among Orthodox Muslims that sending students to English or convent schools would somehow interfere with their religious practices. Being a Muslim myself, I have observed it in my family and my neighbor. So this needs to change, and it is changing, and the things are improving. Progress is being made, sir.
Okay, so you said you have saw it in your neighborhood. So have you approached those neighbors and asked them to send the students to school or anything like that?
Yes, sir. Going to AMU kind of gave me some moral legitimacy among in my family and among the people I know. So first of all, in my family itself, for example, my distant cousins, my distant uncles, they were ours. Like when I was growing up, when my father sent me to school, they would kind of make fun of him for sending me to school instead of sending me to work. So now when they see me succeeding, it gives them motivation. They have changed their mind, and whenever I go back home, the people come with their children to guide them for higher education. I always try to motivate them, try to inspire them to pursue higher education.
Okay. So your hobby is brisk walking. Is it same as race walking?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware of race walking.
Okay. Is brisk walking a part of Olympics?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay. Fine. No problem.
Thank you, sir.
You have watching and comparing world cinema.
Yes,
so can you compare Telugu cinema with Malayalam movies?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do you watch Indian movies?
I do watch Indian movies.
Okay.
I recently watched a South Indian movie, Kantara, Kannada movie.
Okay.
I read a Tamil movie, Jai Bhim.
Okay.
Although I'm not sure about Telugu movie and Malayalam movie.
Okay, fine, no
Sorry,
problem. One more questions.
Yes,
You are you watch cinema a lot. So now these OTT platforms are coming. So how these OTT platforms are changing the paradigm of Indian cinema? Can you point out something?
Sir, OTT cinema, first of all, has made cinema and TV very accessible, even in the remote corners, and the audience has certainly increased. So now movie makers are trying to cater to varied interests of audience. So now we have movies like Satya, that Ayushmann Khurrana movie, I'm forgetting the name, about homosexual relations. At the same time, there are movies, TV series like Khaki, which represent the crime scene in Bihar. So the spectrum on which movies and TV is being made, that is certainly broadened, and it has become more rooted in different aspects of Indian society.
Okay.
थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू आमिर, बहुत अच्छा लगा आपसे बात करके। और
Same
अभी
here,
हम 5 मिनट में आपको बुलाते हैं आपका फीडबैक देने के लिए। उम्मीद है कि आप काफ़ी इससे अच्छा इम्प्रूव करेंगे।
सॉरी सर।
उम्मीद है आप इससे काफ़ी अच्छा इम्प्रूव कर पाएंगे इस बार।
थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू, प्लीज़। आमिर, आपका जो इंटरव्यू चला उसमें बोर्ड मेंबर्स का अपना अपना ओपिनियन है। सबसे पहले मैं अपनी बात कह दूं तो लगातार क्या आपको कुछ खांसी वांसी है, कुछ कफ है?
हाँ सर, कफ चल रहा है।
थोड़ा सा गर्म पानी या कुछ दवाई ले लो।
यस सर।
और लास्ट ईयर भी आपने इंटरव्यू दिया था,
यस सर।
तो हम उम्मीद करते हैं इस 1 साल में आप काफ़ी इम्प्रूव करेंगे।
यस सर।
सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है आपका जो आई कांटेक्ट है वो बहुत प्रॉपर नहीं है।
यस सर।
नीचे क्यों देखते हो इतना?
ओके सर।
राइट। दूसरा, आप जो है वो लिप की बहुत नॉइज़ हो रही है आपकी बोलते समय लगातार। स्पीच की प्रॉब्लम आपको आ रही है, आप बोलते समय बहुत ज़्यादा लिप की वॉइस कर रहे हो उसमें। तो ये बॉडी लैंग्वेज की बात हो गई। ये हेयर इतने डिजी क्यों तुम्हारे?
सर
पिछले साल तो ठीक ठाक थे तुम, इस बार क्या हो गया? बहुत कैजुअली आ गया। कब है इंटरव्यू?
सर इंटरव्यू तो अभी डेट नहीं आई है। वी हैव बीन सिटिंग फॉर अराउंड 3 आवर्स।
कोई बात नहीं है, 3 आवर वहाँ हो सकता है दिन भर बैठना पड़ जाए।
हाँ सर।
तो क्या शाम तक बिल्कुल वो कोट वोट उतार के एकदम गुड्डू रंगीला हो जाओगे क्या वहाँ?
नहीं सर, सॉरी सर।
हाँ, किस तरह टाई की नॉट कैसे लिए तुमने?
खराब हुई।
हाँ,
सॉरी सर।
थोड़ा सा ध्यान देने की जरूरत है, प्रॉपर्ली ड्रेसअप करो उसमें। और सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम तुम्हारी यार डैप पे तुमने बिल्कुल काम नहीं।
यस सर, अभी वी आर वर्किंग ऑन इट। वी आर वर्किंग ऑन इट।
अच्छा, हॉबीज लिखते समय कहाँ से लिया है इसको?
सर अपनी हॉबीज है सर।
ये अपनी है?
यस सर।
चलिए फिर सब शुरू करिए, ड्रिल करके आप।
See, first of all, whatever you are writing in your DAP, particularly hobbies, you have to do adequate research on all the areas. Like when writing, types of writings, all the different, what is creative writing, and how autobiographies are differentiated, and also you should be able to add your own idea about that कि सर मैं इस टाइप से ये करता हूँ, right? Now, second important thing that sometimes I find you go too much on the side of confidence. Sometimes you are too overconfident, sometimes too underconfident. तो ऐसा मत करो, एक बैलेंस्ड पर्सनैलिटी अपने आप को रिफ्लेक्ट करना है। तो उसके लिए ज़रूरी है कि थ्रू आउट यू शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ दिस कि बहुत ज़्यादा ऐसा आप आंसर न करें जिससे पैनलिस्ट को लगे कि आप कुछ असर्टिव हो रहे हैं या अग्रेसिव हो रहे हैं, या ऐसा भी नहीं करें कि ऐसा लगे कि आप बहुत डिप्रेसिव हो रहे हैं, है ना? तो एक बैलेंस मेंटेन करने की कोशिश, वो लैकिंग है ना? बाकी जनरली आई फाइंड यू टू बी ओके। और जो ये क्वेश्चन पूछने वाले हैं वो डेफिनेटली कि वाई यू हैव कम डाउन फ्रॉम 90% टू 60%, है ना? तो उसका यू हैव टू यू गिव अ वेरी कन्विंसिंग रीज़न। ये नहीं चलेगा कि मैं कॉलेज में गया तो मैं मतलब ये बोल सकते हो कि एकदम से कॉलेज का एनवायरनमेंट जो है वो इट टुक मी टाइम टू बी अडेप्टेबल टू दैट वाज वन, बट लेटर ऑन आई पिक्ड अप। वो अपने करेक्ट बोला। तो आंसर को थोड़ा सा इम्प्रूव करने की ज़रूरत है उसमें, इस पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन पे, राइट? और राइटिंग क्वेश्चन पे। बाकी मैम ने जो पूछा ब्रिस्क वॉक, शी विल बी एबल टू गिव यू फीडबैक, बट जनरली आई फाइंड यू दैट अदर देन दीज पॉइंट्स आई थिंक यू कैन स्टिल मेक इट, बट you need to improve upon that balancing part of the personality. Okay sir, right? Thank you sir.
Yeah, I would say Aamir, आप again the same things कि आपको you need to improve your knowledge.
Yes ma'am.
Definitely need to improve. मतलब सतीश सर ने भी जो बजाज सर ने, एडमिरल बजाज ने क्वेश्चन पूछा अबाउट सर्वेलेंस शिप एंड ऑल, या लिटरेचर पे पूछा।
ये कमांड की बहुत
कमांड के बारे में
सिंपल नॉलेज है, वो ज़्यादा नहीं है कि आर्मी के कितने कमांड है, IFO से कितने हैं, नेवी के कितने हैं, सिंपल।
सो यू नीड टू इम्प्रूव योर नॉलेज, मतलब अभी काफ़ी गैप है थोड़ा सा। सेकेंडली, आई ट्राइड टू पुल यू डाउन एंड यू रियली गॉट पुल्ड डाउन। आप नर्वसनेस दिख गई मुझे बहुत क्लियरली, जैसे मैंने आपको प्रॉड किया तो आप नर्वस हो गए और वो दिख गया, और फिर इन्होंने बहुत क्वाइटली आपको थोड़ा सा रेस किया, ठीक है? तो ये डिपिंग नहीं आनी चाहिए, बहुत क्लियरली मतलब हावी हो जाएगा इंटरव्यू बोर्ड आप पे पूरी तरह से, ठीक है? सो दीज आर माय प्रिसाइज इन्फॉर्मेशन। ब्रिस्क वॉकिंग, इट्स नथिंग टू डू विद हार्ट रेट, इट्स बेसिकली द स्पीड, बिकॉज हर एक का हार्ट रेट अलग हो जाएगा, बॉडी वेट, हाइट, सबके हिसाब से हार्ट रेट अलग हो जाएगा। Brisk walking is speed. Okay.
Thank you.
Aamir, just few suggestions. Whenever you are given a question where you can elaborate, so take your time and try to elaborate on it. For example, I asked about OTT. I asked about the student dropout. You can take your time and think more and speak more of it, rather than just finishing it in 2 lines or 1 line. For example, in student dropout, you can say that I will involve NGOs. So have an inclusive approach whenever you are in district or wherever. So have an inclusive approach towards it. Same for OTT, and as said by ma'am, you have to prepare brisk walking in all these hobbies a lot.
Yes.
Okay. But good part is that you have some relevance in your answers, so that is the good part of it.
Thank you.
You can study more.
थैंक यू।
All the
Just
best.
1 minute. ओवरऑल अभी जो मुझे लग रहा है कि 130 के 130 to 150 पे आप स्टैंड कर रहे हैं।
Okay, sir.
माई असेसमेंट अभी आपको ये 170 to 200 तक जा सकते हो। जो पॉइंट्स पैनलिस्ट ने बताए हैं वो आप थोड़ा सा अभी नोट डाउन कर लेना।
Yes, sir.
आई थिंक यू कैन मेक इट अप टू 200 ईजीली, राइट।
Thank you.
थोड़ा इम्प्रूवमेंट लिटिल बिट, और ये विशेष ध्यान दो इसके ऊपर कि वेरिएशन बहुत ज़्यादा पर्सनैलिटी में नहीं आना चाहिए। ऐसा नहीं लगना चाहिए पैनलिस्ट को कि तुम कभी तो बहुत अच्छा बोल रहे हो, कभी एकदम बिल्कुल ही कुछ नहीं बोल पा रहे हो।
Okay.
तो थोड़ा सा समय ले लो, यू कैन टेक योर ओन टाइम, और यू कैन इवन रिक्वेस्ट द बोर्ड मेंबर्स कि सर प्लीज गिव मी अ मिनट, राइट। और फिर आराम से बोलो ताकि लगे कि हाँ मतलब एक नेचुरल वे में बोलो कि लगे कि हाँ मतलब ही इज अ बैलेंस पर्सनैलिटी एंड ही हैंडल्स ऑल डिफरेंट सिचुएशंस एडिक्वेटली। जो राइटिंग के बारे में आप लिख रहे हो ना, तो राइटिंग पे यू हैव टू डू कंप्लीट रिसर्च, डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ राइटिंग, क्योंकि राइटिंग ए स्पेसिफिक जॉनरा ऑफ राइटिंग।
Yes, sir.
तो उसके बारे में भी सब कुछ पता होना चाहिए, और किस किस तरह की राइटिंग्स होती है, उसकी क्रिएटिव राइटिंग, हाउ डू यू डिफरेंशिएट दिस फ्रॉम योर रिफ्लेक्टिव राइटिंग, क्योंकि उसके ऊपर बहुत कुछ पूछ सकते हैं, राइट। एंड वन लास्ट थिंग कि जैसे ही आप एंटर करोगे, सर ने तो बता दिया, लेकिन इफ देयर इज अ लेडी मेंबर तो पहले आप उनको ग्रीट करो।
Okay, sir.
वो रूल है,
In
पहले आप लेडी
before the
मेंबर को
chairman,
ग्रीट करो।
before the chairperson,
नहीं, चेयरपर्सन नहीं है तो भी पहले आप लेडी मेंबर को ग्रीट करो।
and after that I should greet the chairperson.
हाँ, यस, लेडी मेंबर को पहले ग्रीट करो।
Okay, sir.
गलती से बोल जाए, थोड़ा सा बायस लगता है, यू नो, कि यू आर ऑलवेज कंसिडरिंग अ पर्सन इन पोजीशन टू बी अ मेल पर्सन, यू नो, इट गोज वेरी रॉन्ग, particularly in the kind of public service you are going in.
उससे आपको मार्क्स थोड़े बेटर मिलेंगे।
Just straight away from ladies there in the panel, just say good morning ma'am, good morning sir.
हाँ हाँ हाँ।
एंड एमिड रीडर वर्ड अवॉइड।
Okay, sir.
पहले प्रोक्लेम कर रहे थे तुम बहुत आंसू रीडर।
और कोई नहीं इस चीज को, एक्चुअली दैट्स राइट, एविड रीडर खुद को प्रोफिशिएंट किसी चीज में मत बोलो।
Okay.
राइट, थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू, ऑल
Thank
द
you, sir.
बेस्ट,
Thank you.
ऑल द बेस्ट।
और कोई हेल्प चाहिए तो फील फ्री,
Okay, sir.
अभी बहुत इंप्रूव करना है।
Yes, sir.
और ये तुम्हारा सेकंड अटेम्प्ट है, इंटरव्यू है,
हाँ, second interview.
तो
Very
बहुत
good.
ध्यान से।
डोंट वरी, अच्छा स्कोर होगा।
अच्छा होगा, थोड़ा सा
टिप्स
बस
ध्यान
चीज़ों
रखो
को
थोड़ा।
improve करना।
बालों को थोड़ा ठीक करो,
जी सर।
ठीक है। दाढ़ी बढ़ा ली तुमने, लेकिन अभी थोड़ा सा नॉलेज भी और थोड़ा गेन करो।
जी सर,
Last year से।
try.
ठीक है, थैंक यू।
आप सोचो जाके।
Thank you, sir.